Morning, everybody. I thought I would do this video and this wonderful, beautiful Sunday morning in front of the hibiscus. We're out here in the garden, and fittingly enough, that's a good analogy because we're going to be talking about how things progress and why progress itself can kind of be a lie. Let's go into it. So progress. When you think about progress, what do you think about? You think about how things move forward at a constant pace, how they're getting better, how they're improving. And I'm just going to share just my personal life testimony about how I viewed progress. And a lot of times it can be really hard for people in a society to see what a society is doing wrong. They just feel like society's progressing forward. So they don't. It can create a scenario where they don't question ideas, and they don't have the critical thinking to stop and say, well, maybe where we're going isn't such a good thing, or maybe where we're going is good and objective, but we're not doing it in the right way. So the thing about progress is that progress has this way of tricking you into believing that whatever the group think is doing is good. And of course, history shows over and over and over again that that's not the case. The group think is not consistently what is good, as we can constantly throughout history and see the evils that have been done by past societies over and over and over again. And why did they allow for that? Why did Western powers pick up on slavery and allow that to evolve to where it did? At the time, it seemed like progress. It seemed like the place they were going, it was making things better. It was utilizing resources that they didn't have before. Those types, it seemed like it was good, but it wasn't. The Romans probably had no idea. They thought that their focus on art and entertainment, they thought that was a way to make a more peaceful society. And there's actually records of just their notion of superiority and their influence and who they were, without realizing that the underbelly of their whole society had collapsed on the support level, that they didn't have the strength anymore to support who they were, and it wasn't hard for the Germanic tribes to come in and completely knock them off their pedestal because they had no strength anymore. So they thought they were civilized, they thought they had it all together, but they weren't even strong enough to stand on their own 2 feet. And so when we talk about progress, we have to be very careful. We should be critical of where our society is headed and what we're doing. In my own personal space, I will share with you that I grew up with this constant idea that I'm a part of society, I have an identity as a part of society, and I have to maintain that identity. It's sort of like a mentality that what I'm in is not negotiable. It's like America, whatever it is, right? I have to be a part of it. So it doesn't matter where the group think or where the society seems to go. I have to somehow try to go along with it. And so as the values change, I have to match those to my values. Of course, being a Christian, that made it very difficult because those values conflict with my Christian values consistently. But I felt pulled. I somehow felt like I had to negotiate those two. And I just kept trying to do that for a very long time. I kept trying to negotiate those values, and it just wasn't happening. It was tough. Sometimes I would figure out how to work them together, but I have to do a lot of twisting and turning. And I read a couple of really good books that really changed my mind on this. One of them was The Fate of Empires by Sir John Glubb. And I don't think I've ever had a video where I've discussed Sir John Glubb's work. But basically, Sir John Glubb breaks down a civilization life cycle into 7 stages. You have outburst, which is where the civilization or the group gets identity. expansion, whereas if they're strong enough to expand against those around them. And then you have conquest, which is the civilization left at this point, if they've survived past 1 and 2, which most civilization structures do not. But the ones that survive to stage 3 always invariably resort to physical means of absorbing other populations, and that's what they honor and what they value is conquest and people that conquest. Those are the heroes of society. They want to see expansion. They want to see growth. Their ideals in themselves are so vivid. They're just like we are awesome. We're going to force other people to accept these ideas that we have. Stage 4 is wealth. On the back of all that conquest, they always get wealthy. Always. And so that wealth begins to pour in, and they use that to their own dominance. Now, at this point, Sir John Glubb says that the civilization has already hit its high noon, and it's beginning to hit its peak, as wealth can replace the values of the society as its driving force going forward. They no longer are doing it for the virtue of the goal, but they're doing it for the wealth and the benefit, their self-benefit. So that allows them to sacrifice each other if need be, and allows the moral structure to break down. So that's stage 4. Or stage 5 is intellect. On the back of their wealth, they always invest in innovation and intellect, whatever it is. A lot of time, it can be militaristic, scientific, philosophical, artistic. There's always great innovations on the back of that wealth because they invest in institutions that actually support that. So, and there's also lots of people with more itinerant time. Not everyone in the society is focused on survival anymore. When you have people that don't have to work to survive, you have a more developed society. Well, there's people that are free to be entertainers, they're free to be artists, they're free to be philosophers, they're free to do all the things that they hadn't done before, to be innovators. And those people actually have a voice, and their innovations can get out. And so they value those things. They value intellect, and they value people that are that make innovations, scientific innovations, militaristic innovations, things like that. Stage 6 is decline. So what you have to understand about decline is that once you get to the path of intellect, the society has a severe drop in its willingness to defend itself and stand up for its values. On the back of its intellect, it always, and he goes through China, and understand, he traces these 7 stages through ancient China, Rome, Persia, Egypt, Greece, India, it doesn't matter. It's like he does so many examples, right? But on the back of their intellect, they always feel like they eventually need to innovate their own goal in society. They question that. They absorb ideas. They have educational institutions which started out as a way in order to bring influence of their idea and their society to others and to teach their values, but then they become indoctrination points and conversion points for others against them. And eventually they just sort of splice out and they begin to give up on their own idea. In fact, almost unanimously throughout history, they absolutely hate the foundation that they were built upon as a society once they get to stage 6, which is decline. They care about entertainment. They care about sense data, just the physical pleasures of life. The entertainers, the actors, the singers, these are all the people that are most valued in society. They're the ones that achieve top level and have the most respect. They don't value the achievers anymore. The scientific innovations, the militaristic, the expansionists, they just don't value that anymore. So if those are people that can make them feel good, that can help them feel better about themselves, that's what they like. And understand that Sir John Glubb is writing this, at this point, more than 50 years ago. So please understand that this isn't something that somebody made up like 10 years ago in order to try and describe American society or Western society as it is now. Western society has been on this path for a very long time. The ideas Sir John Glubb gives aren't necessarily the newest of ideas. Like, there's other people that have said these things, but Sir John Glubb is the one that really codified it for Western academia. In any regard, stage 7 is collapse. On the back of their weakness, because of their inability to, most of the time, even field an army to defend themselves, somebody comes in and they just take over. Usually it's militaristically. Usually there's violence, 90% of the time. Occasionally there can be a cultural takeover that happens, but mostly it's militaristic, and they come in and the society suffers greatly a terrible injustice. So the reason why I say this is because I read that book, and it really revolutionized how I thought about progress. We have this perception that progress in society is always just this constant machine that moves to make things better and better. And that sort of fits in with the theory of evolution. It fits in with the theory, with all of our experiences of technological progress. We feel like we're so much more superior than our ancestors were, that they didn't know better. They were knuckle draggers, and we can judge them. But it's not that case. They were so much wiser than us on some things. We have to give them that. And there's new studies coming out that really are stunning people to learn. Like, for instance, there's studies coming out saying that 3,000 years ago our brains were bigger. Why were our brains bigger? Well, think about this. With the development of human society towards specialization, you're not responsible to know as much as you used to. I can get through my entire life being one thing and getting money I need to survive, and then surviving off of that, right? I only have to know how to do that one thing throughout my life. Whatever it is. It could be management, it could be nursing, it could be recruiting, it could be sales. I don't know. Whatever it is, you specialize, right? And then you can get by on that. It didn't used to be like that. It used to be that if you were going to survive 3,000 years ago, still a lot of third world countries where you live by yourself with your family unit, you got all sorts of things. You got to know how to make food. You got to know how to bring plants out of the ground. You have to know how to deal with livestock, or you have to know how to trade. You have to know where to get things. You have to know how to forage or gather. And you have to know how to build stuff too. You have to build stuff and maintenance stuff that you need to survive. Think about all those appliances you take for granted now. You don't know how they work. They just work. Well, before you had to know how to do that stuff on your own to figure that out. And so all that knowledge was just packed in the heads, and so the brain had to be bigger to accommodate more stuff. Well, now you don't need as much stuff. And you think about how the average person spends their time now, and a lot of them just spend their time in front of a TV screen. That's most of their time that they're not working. And you think, yeah, like you're not really taking in. You don't have to know as much knowledge to survive now. You have to adapt. So the brain can afford to be smaller, which preserves energy and is more efficient. So that makes sense. But it also helps you realize just that our ancestors weren't just knuckle-dragging idiots. You know, they weren't the Neanderthals that progress leads to believe they are. And then, of course, I read some other books, too, like the Book of Enoch. For the first time in my life, I understood that innovations could be bad. You know, in the Book of Enoch, it talks about how writing is supposed to be a really good thing. The problem with writing is that it takes memory. It takes the power of verse and memory out of your mind and puts it onto paper. So you're no longer trying to think about it anymore. And that stunned me. It was like, wait, writing is an innovation that actually took something from us? Same thing with the tools of war, any tools that we develop. And I even discussed this in the Epic of Rin, like tools. How do tools affect us? We can't get rid of tools we're accustomed to, otherwise we would sacrifice the people around us and ourselves, because we need those tools to survive. But those tools did take something from us. They took faith out of our hands, out of our mind, and put it into something else. For thousands of years in societies that didn't have a written system, where you had to remember things orally and you passed that down, that was how things were retained. You had to have a super sharp memory to keep all that detail and intact. Well, now you don't have to have that. You write it down. You can just refer to the book. It's your brain for you. So that was a huge thing for me. And then, of course, I also read, I think it really hit me reading Ecclesiastes in the Bible, just the trivialness of the things that we come up with and the things that we do. We create so much and we do so much and there's so much effort, but at the end of the day, it's all for nothing unless we actually have the real stuff taken care of. Our eternal salvation, our eternal destination, the idea that we eat and we drink for tomorrow we die, the idea that we live happy because there's nothing else to do, is empty. And Solomon, presumably Solomon, when he writes Ecclesiastes, knows it's empty. But that's all there is until you know that there's eternal life, until you know his relationship with God. And that really struck me as well. And all that combined broke me of that idea that we're headed somewhere, and I have to keep up. That I have to identify with this idea, and I have to identify with the progress, and that whatever my faith is, I have to try and fit it together somehow and get them both to line up, and I don't. It set me free from that. And it should set you free from that. You don't have to abide by anything that you don't want to. You really need to take the time to think critically, figure out what you should actually believe, and what you should actually entertain for yourself. You don't have to walk in lockstep with everyone else and be pulled along. You can go your own direction, and that's perfectly fine. And there is the idea that there's a thought crime, there's something you're not supposed to think, is something that is more and more becoming prevalent as people feel the pressure to walk in step with everything going on. I don't know if that is necessarily a new concept. I think there's more enforcement of it because you have all this technology out there, and you have all these people that are now really enforcing the idea of thought crime, and they're really punishing people that think differently in society. So there is that. But there's always been a sense of society thinks a certain way, and if I don't think the same way, I'm going to lose my place in society. I think as a Christian, you have your place in the kingdom and you're with God, and you trust in that first. And you do need to take what other people in the kingdom say, and you need to let that influence you and call you out, because it's very easy for us to adopt ideas that are quite out there and we don't even know it. So there is that. But that's different than society outside the church, which doesn't have the gospel as its anchor. But the idea of progress itself, in essence, it can be a lie. I'm not saying it can't be good. Progress obviously there's great progress you can make that does great things. You can make all these innovations, scientifically, technologically, philosophically, to help society. But it can be a lie in that it doesn't always take you the direction where society needs to go to be happy and healthy, or what's best for humanity. We come up with these innovations, but we don't realize that we have this incredible revelation that was given to us 2,000 years ago, that humanity has been spending 2,000 years just trying to fully understand. And we haven't been doing a great job. We've struggled to make it happen. We've gotten better and better as the time goes on. That's the real progress being made. But progress doesn't have to always, where progress goes, it may take you away from that. It may take you from that revelation. It may take you from what's best for humanity. So question that. Critically think. You don't have to walk in lockstep with everything. Anyway, that's what I have for you today. I hope you got a lot out of it. As always, I want you to think for yourself, review critically. You can always reach out to me and ask whatever questions you want, and then just let me know if you want to discuss. I'm always open. You can just comment on YouTube if you want. Comment below, like and subscribe, whatever. Spread this around. That's a cool idea. And then, that's pretty much it. Have a wonderful Sunday, and I hope that whatever happens well for you.